Hello, I am Ramona Miles, and this is Tech Savvy Women Over 50 magazine, issue number 6. This is our cover interview with Dr. Marcia Nathai Balkissoon. Welcome, Marcia. Welcome, welcome. How are you?
I'm well, Ramona. Thank you so much for having me on. I've been looking forward to this so much because you and I have a rapport that has surprised us both over the years. And
Yes.
it is a pleasure and a privilege to be here.
Oh, it's an honor. I'm looking forward to our conversation because a lot has transpired over the years and over the months that we've really been focusing on this. And so
Mhm.
we're going to dive right on in. I'm going to start pounding you with some questions, and
Sure.
later, when viewers are able to see this, they will be able to make comments and learn and realize what an impact someone like you in their lives can make. So, Marcia, tell us a little bit about your journey, your journey as a special needs mom. I was gonna give like a little brief something, but no, let's just have a conversation.
All right, sounds good. On
Yeah.
purpose, I left my notes out and I thought, you know what? Let's do this really from the heart. Let's just connect. I'll listen to what you have to ask, listen to what you have to say. Let's have a genuine conversation. And I think that works so well for us as well as for anybody that we might help
Mhm.
or support. Um, you were saying Marsha, and I was wondering if I could do the Brady thing. the
Right?
the journey that I've been on to be a special needs parent coach has been a long time coming.
Mhm.
Before I ever became a special needs parent, I, as a child, had a disabled uncle.
Mm.
And my dad who was his brother-in-law, so that makes it even more notable to me now as an adult, would go to visit him, and he'd be the only person that my uncle would allow to soak his feet and cut his toenails.
Wow.
It was so taken for granted by me as a child, but when I grew up I realized how much love that showed and how much trust it showed on the part of my uncle to say,
Mhm.
Harold, would you see about my feet for me? Because he had scoliosis that caused him to be a real hunchback and
Mhm.
to have difficulty walking and so on. And his feet would hurt, his legs would hurt, and they were misshapen and so on. And when I got to about, may have been 9 or 10, I remember Daddy saying, "Okay, Marsh, you're big enough now, come."
Mm.
Taught me to be the one who would cut his toenails and clean everything for him. And I had a special connection with that uncle. I called him my second dad, Uncle Frank, and I didn't realize that I was almost in training for what was going to happen 40 years on. Yeah.
Mhm.
Um, and then going through life, I became an engineer, worked for about 15 years in engineering, consulting, auditing, things like that, and eventually made my way into teaching at a university. What's interesting is I decided one day I may have special needs children in my class, in my university class, and who have not been diagnosed.
Mm.
And I started to do courses to try to help me to see and to help me to support them. I didn't know I was helping myself at that point.
Wow.
So it was wonderful because by the time my daughter was born, which was 12 years ago, and at age 8 months, she had to have open heart surgery. And somebody ended up pulling out a tube and she bled out. So by the time she was 8 months old and flatlined and eventually became vegetative, I remember the doctor saying there's no hope and advising us to either let her go, or if we were stubborn enough to say no, to put her in a home and move on with our lives. And neither felt like the right thing to me or my husband.
Mm.
So we said to ourselves, after 20 minutes of flatlining, if God brings her back to us, it's meant to be. M is meant to be ours, and this is our life. So we didn't really overthink it past the knowing that this was our girl and we wanted her. So at that point, we had a 5-year-old son, and now M, 8 months old, she had been standing the day before for the first time,
Oh, wow.
and now she couldn't even lift her head, she couldn't see, she couldn't move, etc. And life was looking very bleak. I remember looking at that point for a book. I went on Amazon and I searched for a Kindle book in that hospital room.
Mm-hmm.
Said, let me find out about what I could do, what do I need to know. And I couldn't find books to help me at that point. And that made it a very, very scary situation to be in, because the only thing I was hearing is what could not happen, would not happen, and that my child was not worth an effort.
Mm.
To the point where a particular doctor actually said, you're being irresponsible to me, because to hope,
Wow.
to hope in his mind was irresponsible. This happened in the States, so we stayed in the States for some months while she was comatose, semi-comatose, etc. And we brought our child back home here to Trinidad about 3 months later, still semi-comatose, and she just lay in a bed, arms outstretched, feet down and unable to move. And I remember hiding the fear and the doubt and the self-criticism and judgment that I had. I hid it from the world, but most importantly, I hid it from the people closest to me.
Mm.
My husband, in my mind, had enough that he was carrying, so he didn't need me around his neck as well. My 5-year-old son, I was so terrified for, because that was a lot of trauma for him to have faced already. And so all I could think about, even though I was also going through trauma, was, what does my special needs child need? What does my husband need? What does my son need? How do I keep working, because I have all these bills to pay? A bill came from the hospital a couple months after we returned home, and it was 72,000 US dollars that they had sent in the mail as the bill. And we multiply by almost 7 here. So arguably, this is malpractice that hurt my child, but I was being billed for it.
Mm-hmm.
And that added to everything else
More.
that I was carrying.
Yeah.
I remember suffering in silence and feeling every morning that I woke up that I was putting back on this heavy cloak. As soon
Mm.
as my eyes opened, it was Groundhog Day, and I was living the same day over and over, because M had the same needs. I was going to be lifting and caring and chasing and literally running task to task just to get it all done every day.
Mm-hmm.
So people talk about, well, you just need to take a rest. You just need to take a break. Well, who in that situation figures out how to take a break? It's easy to do a throwaway piece of advice, but that's not really
Mm.
caring for the person who is breaking down.
Absolutely.
Um, and then there was a lot of self-judgment and feeling that no matter how hard I worked, no matter how much I packed onto that to-do list and how hard I ran to get it all done, I couldn't finish. And what I did finish, I still felt like I should have done it better.
Mm.
I should be, I'm doing stuff with Emma. I feel like, shouldn't I be working on work? I'm working
Mm.
and I'm feeling like, shouldn't I be caring for Em? I'm doing one of those two and I'm saying, what a terrible parent you are for your son. Because now all your attention is going elsewhere. Shouldn't you be caring for him? Oh, and what about your marriage? You're not even caring about your husband because you all pass in the corridors. And there's more, right?
There's absolutely,
So
because this is day to day. This is something that I would like for people to understand who are not or have never been close to experiencing this in someone's household. Like, this is, like you're saying, you wake up in the morning, there's no pause button. And the time you wake up is not going to be even scheduled, because your daughter's time is your time, right? Like
that's
you,
true. There is no
it,
such thing as sleeping through the night. We haven't slept
absolutely.
in 12 years. We haven't slept a full night's sleep.
Right, right. And so it's that part. Like, you've described it, and I feel like as you're describing, or you're telling your story, not for you to relive it, but for us to lean in and sort of like even have a visual, to
Mm.
feel that, so that if there is someone's watching this later, it's something to think about. From a totally different perspective, not from the outside in, but
Yeah.
imagine what that other person's day is like. So the way you just described it, you and I've had conversations for years here. I'm just thinking, like, when you said her age, I was like, I remember when she turned 9, like, you know, and I don't overwhelm you with questions. I feel like when we're talking, although she may be right there,
Mm.
um, it's still a time for you to separate. You can understand what I mean. Like, I know you're there, but I'm not there. So I'm not going to be able to have a conversation with you the same way someone else would, because I'm not there with you. We've never been in the same space. And
Mm.
so I can't even imagine how that is. So when we have our talks, it's like we're talking about work, we're talking about business. We do talk about personal things, but sometimes I want to ask questions, but I'm like, I'm not going to ask her that. I'm not going to ask her that. And so what's happened, I mean, I don't do that anymore, but at the beginning,
Yeah.
and because I'm a question asker, I ask people questions. And I was like, it'd be really good for our time not to be about certain parts of your personal life, so that
Mm.
it's a zone that doesn't have to be filled in with
Yeah.
everything. And I don't know if that's any type of advice to give someone, but I think it works with us.
Yeah,
It,
I think it's different with everybody that you're friends with.
yeah.
There are some people that you'll just lay your heart open with. And I've found that kind of friendship with you, which is a blessing. Um, and I don't have many friendships like that. That's another element of when we talk about the journey to why I chose to eventually say I'm a special needs parenting coach.
Mm-hmm.
It's something you told me 4 years ago I should do, and I resisted it.
Yeah.
Because at that point I was helping people work through burnout and overwhelm, and I thought that burnout and overwhelm in all the contexts was something that I could help with, and I didn't want to focus on special needs parents. But even as I did the general burnout and overwhelm, what I was doing in the background was writing a book for special needs parents, because I didn't want somebody else to be in the darkness by themselves. I
Yeah.
wanted to hold their hand and keep them from. I literally used to sit on my bed at 2 and 3 in the morning, and I would cry and I would pray to God. and say, God, don't wake me up in the morning. There were days when there were periods when I'd cry like that. I loved my child and my family so much, but I felt like I had lost all sense of meaning and hope. I could only see failure,
Mm-hmm.
that I was a failure. I could only see fear. I worried constantly about what would happen because M was deteriorating in different ways. Her diagnosis were hard to come by. People don't like to diagnose. And therefore, I didn't even know how to help my child because I didn't know what she had to,
Right.
to help her.
Right.
And I remember saying, everything I do feels like it's not enough. I've run out of money. Everything I had sort of had been used up. So when I die, what's going to happen to her? And I remember thinking, well, if I die, at least the insurance would make sure she's okay. That's how
Mm-hmm.
depressed I must have been, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, Grasping at straws and saying, well, you're not adding any value to anybody here. Um,
Mm.
and yet I didn't tell anybody that, right?
Yeah. You walked
Um,
around with all of that playing in your head. This is like a story that you've created
yeah.
in your head. It's only in your head. It's probably not in anybody else's. And
No,
if
what
so, it's a
everybody
true
else
story.
saw was somebody who was gung ho and
Mm-hmm.
full of drive to help M and
Yeah.
laughing and playing with Bry because the mask had to be there for his sake.
Yeah.
This is in my mind, of course.
Right.
The mask had to be there for Sean's sake, my husband. And I just had to go through all emotions for everybody else. So I never had time, energy, empowerment to say, oh, you matter too. You belong on the board as well.
Yeah.
And I see that in many, many special needs parents because we are all about everybody else first.
So there's lack of support.
Well, isolation was a huge one.
Mm-hmm.
When Emma got brain injured and bedridden, my friends and family disappeared from my life.
Yeah. That lack of support.
And
Yeah, it fades away. Well,
yeah,
it doesn't fade away because it's not there at first. It's not something that's needed until something happens. And
oh, it
then
was it was
most
so
people,
needed.
yeah, it was needed, but I'm saying
Yeah,
it's not something that was needed before. So after the aftermath of what had
yeah.
happened,
Well, what
they're
was
not.
shocking to me is I had a very present people in my life before.
Mm-hmm.
People who would visit my home, who would phone me, who would, call if they needed help.
Yeah.
And so I thought when the bottom fell out of my world, they'd show up for me too, as I
Mm-hmm.
had shown up for them.
Right. Do you
But they
think
just,
it was as you described it, the mask? Do you think it was the mask that you had on that
mm-mm.
allowed them to just leave you alone? Like, oh, she's got this. It's not that big of a deal, or it's not that
Oh,
bad.
it
So
wasn't
they
that.
just did. No.
No, no, it wasn't that because nobody saw the mask. Nobody came to see the mask. Nobody
Oh,
walked through
wow.
the mask. So
Oh,
people talked to each other about us.
okay. I see.
People
I
visited to see
see.
the circus. They
Mm-hmm.
visited so that they could take anecdotes back and share with one another.
Okay. So I
Um,
wonder how often does that scenario happen with other families? Like,
I've found that there are two scenarios. There are some of us special needs parents who have people who rally around them,
mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
but there's a pretty big group who also
That's
find
the
that
opposite.
they they are dropped like hot potatoes.
Mm-hmm.
And for me, I didn't only feel abandoned, I felt unlovable, not just unloved.
Yeah.
And that shocked me. Like, why do they not like me enough to care for me in my most needy time? I remember that being a really tough thing for me, and it took me about 5 or 6 years to get my feet back under me and,
Mm-hmm.
and realize and take stock and say, Marsh, the fact that this isn't working for you means that it's time to change your whole model of life.
Mm.
I felt like all my dreams had died. The only dream I felt I had the right to have anymore was for my child to be well, to be taken care of.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And so I would call myself selfish if I ever wanted, if I laughed at a joke, I'd feel guilty.
Okay. Oh my.
Much less if I had aspirations for some audacious life, right?
Mm-hmm.
But about 5, 6 years in, that started to change. It came from somewhere inside here.
Good.
And it was about, heck no, why are you, I had this knocking saying, write this book for the other people who are going to be walking that path.
Yeah.
And
Okay.
I would immediately shut it down and say, you, or you are the least qualified to do this. Who wants to listen to you with your accent and coming from where you come from, etc. And that continued to be my stance until about 2020, 2019, 20. One morning I woke up and I just heard, you'll be writing your book and it starts today. That was
Mm.
very strange because I don't usually hear things like that. But I didn't question it. It really felt like, yes, I
Awesome.
will. I will.
Oh, that's wonderful. Yeah.
And Lighting the Path got written then, and it was written because that kind of despair, that kind of loneliness, that kind of loss of hope, and wanting to do the right thing for your child, for your family, for your marriage, for your job, and also to squeeze yourself in somehow,
Mm-hmm.
that that was way outside of the box for me.
That was that box being knocked down, the walls being knocked down. You were stretching and expanding.
Yeah. So
Yes.
by the time I wrote the book, I had decided no rules. I'm rewriting these rules because I don't deserve to live in a prison for the rest of my life.
Absolutely.
And because I'm not selfish for wanting to find joy and fulfillment in my life again. My child deserves to have a mom who lives expansively and who loves her life. I'll be a
Yeah.
much better parent to her, to Brian, a much better employee, a much better lecturer, a much better everything, wife and mother, if I'm fulfilled as an individual.
There we go. Yes. You have to be in there first and they get the overflow.
So, well,
Yes.
it took a couple years to come to that conclusion that you have there, but I was
Yeah. Yeah.
okay
We
with
had met
that.
around. We had met a little bit before then. Yeah.
Yeah, I just wanted two sips from the glass at that point. It wasn't about, okay, I'll drink the whole glass and you can have the overflow.
Yeah.
But
Yes.
but
Yes.
that's
I
my,
remember, but I remember that, and I'm probably, I'm not going to say I'm more excited than you because it's you who's, you know how you feel about you, but I'm right along there with you. Um, from my perspective, in seeing the growth in you and the transformation and all of the wonderfulness that we're looking at today. I know it's been a tough journey, from
yeah.
and just from the last few years, not the whole entire time. But to see this transformation in you, um, I'm just honored to have witnessed and have had conversations before, in between, and after, and now, and moving forward. Like,
So you told me writing this book is the right thing for you and it's coming at just the right time. So how are you going? How is it progressing? And every week or two, I'd give you an update. And so this is Lighting the Path. It has a subtitle which is Leaning into a Hopeful Future
Ah, look at that.
as a Special Needs Parent. And I wanted this
And
book.
I have my copy here with me in Egypt. Yes, I have my copy too. And I have this beautiful bookmark that you sent to me. Remember that?
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. See, it's these special moments. But I have my copy.
So I'm seeing on
Yes.
the bookmark that there's a butterfly. There's a butterfly on my cover as well, because it is
Mm-hmm.
about that evolution, that constant changing that we do along this path that we are walking.
Yes, it's two butterflies. I said it was one was you and one was me. Oh,
So
what
that's the
that's just
aim.
so amazing. So I don't even have to ask you wait, say that again?
So I was saying, so that's the aim of the book, really, to hold another parent's hand and remind them that while you may look around and not see a single person that you think understands what you're going through, there are so many of us on the path, one step ahead or one step behind you. And our job is to reach out and hold each other's hands and say, nope, don't worry, you're not alone. And maybe the tools that I've used or somebody else has used, those get to inform our practice. Those get to hold
Mm-hmm.
us up so that it doesn't feel as heavy, as daunting. You don't see only failure, you see resilience, you see hope.
Yes.
You see success. So that's the aim of the book, really, to hold another parent's hand and remind them that while you may look around and not see a single person that you think understands what you're going through, there are so many of us on the path, one step ahead or one step behind you. And our job is to reach out and hold each other's hands and say, nope, don't worry, you're not alone. And maybe the tools that I've used or somebody else has used, those get to inform our practice. Those get to hold
Mm-hmm.
us up so that it doesn't feel as heavy, as daunting. You don't see only failure, you see resilience, you see hope,
Yes.
you see success, even if your child's development doesn't look like the development of another child.
Mm-hmm.
You can still see how far both you and your child have come. And you know that that will continue.
That's amazing. So in your book, now you've pretty much I have a question about give us a glimpse, but you've given us a glimpse of your journey and different things that you've pointed out in your book. Is there something specific that you'd like for someone to take a look at if they purchase the book, or I won't say if, but when?
Hmm.
um, Even if someone purchased the book as a gift for someone else,
Yeah.
uh, is there a chapter in here that stands out the most for you?
The book is comprised of 11 chapters that walk us through some of the main challenges and opportunities that we face. But
Mm-hmm.
the very first chapter was where my life started to change for the better. And it was focused on taking stock of where I was.
Mm.
In order for me to survive in those early days of the crisis, and when I say early days, it actually was early years of the crisis, I had to numb myself to a lot of the pain and negativity.
Mm-hmm.
Um, a lot of the negativity came from me. It was my own harsh self-criticism. But so much judgment came from outside as well. I would go to clinics, and people that didn't know us would come up and tell me I was a terrible parent because my child was not wearing socks and I should have socks on her feet. When the doctors were telling me not to put socks on so that she could feel. And so anything I did, somebody had a judgment, and it was all
something to say about it. Yeah.
And I could laugh now, but it's not something you feel like you could laugh at when people are pointing at you and shouting at you and judging you in public.
Yeah. Well, especially early on, because it can take a lifetime to process.
Yeah.
That few seconds of the doctors telling you what had happened. You know, when they came out to actually tell you what had happened, that's not a conversation that takes days. That happens in a few seconds.
Yeah.
But it may take you years to process that. Some people may never process it. So for your first chapter, acknowledging what had happened, that's not something that can just happen when you hear someone tell you some devastating news.
Yeah. For me, acknowledgement it wasn't just putting a diagnosis on things. That wasn't it. It was I was actively trying not to feel the feelings, because there were too many hard feelings. Guilt and blame and doubt and anger and, fear, so much fear and worry and anxiety and so on. Isolation and betrayal and all of those things. So I had to get brave and say, Marsh, do you realize that you're living in this very narrow middle ground because you're numbing yourself? And when you numb yourself to keep yourself safe from the hard feelings, you also rob yourself of the ability to feel the highs in your life.
Right.
So
that's a major observation.
I wasn't letting myself feel happy, because I would feel guilty if I felt happy, one, but two, just the numbing reduced how much I could feel the highs and the lows. So I was in this middle ground where everything was gray. And all I was doing is putting one foot in front of the other and going on the list of things to do. Let me do this. Let me do this. I'd become a robot, So that first chapter was about, can you give yourself space to really look at your life and see what it is at this moment? Can you give yourself, and I actually talk about how, so in every chapter, there are tools and there are checklists to hold that reader's hand and say, let me show you how, let me guide you through. Let me give you this checklist with these tools that will help you to continue the journey forward even after you've read the chapter. Because you can't read this book in, say, 5 days and suddenly your life transforms, right? Transformation takes time.
No, it's a reread. Yeah.
The checklists are there so that you have these little summary lists to say, okay, let's make this our work in progress guide. And that first chapter is the one I feel is the best one to start somebody feeling, I'm not alone. I am being held and guided. And that's why I offer it as a free chapter to anybody who wants it.
Yeah, I was going to ask about the free chapter. That's a good place to, not just because it's chapter 1, but that's a good place for people to start, even if they're not a special needs parent. I'm not, in the book. The book is something that I can follow. So, to a certain degree, it can be for anybody, right? And I don't say that for the author. I'm because I was on you, like, focus on one thing, focus on one thing, That was my
Yeah.
anthem, and it still is, like, focus on one thing. But I will say, on the receiving end of it, um, I got something, or a lot. And I said it's a reread. So I've had the book for a while. I want to go back through it again, simply because at the time when I first started reading it, I was going through my own stuff. And
Mm.
so, acknowledging that first chapter, just acknowledging, like you were explaining, acknowledging where you are in your life. I can say honestly now I'm ready, because I did make some major shifts, some major changes. So apparently, reading that did affect me, because it does something when you start to shift the inner dialogue. And that's pretty much what happened to you, or with you, or for you rather, over time, as you started to acknowledge and start to intentionally shift the inner dialogue, because that's sort of what controls and guides and creates our reality. And so
Yeah.
in that shifting, the last few years here, the last couple of years, I'd say, the dialogue, the inner dialogue, I can tell is totally shifted. Like, or maybe if it was dialed up high, it's dialed down. And then so the results of that, um, you can see the transformation. That's what I meant by the
Mm.
transformation. So if I had to describe it as a dial, maybe when we first met, it was on 9, and it maybe hit 10 every now and then, but now it's come all the way over to the other side. And I think we're kind of, our dials are in sync, because we share particular incidents, I guess you could say. Like, if something is going on with you, and I have a couple of other people that I've gotten close with over the last couple of years that this has happened as well, that if I check in with you and we have a conversation, on my end something similar is going on energetically, so, um which
Yeah.
is, it's amazing, because I it's like, people say blood sisters and, play sisters, but I think we're energy sisters.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely energy sisters. So, like I said, I have a copy
Yeah.
of your book, and I'm going to encourage others. If you
It's
know someone who is a special need parent, mom or dad or a couple, it would be a wonderful gift. And if you're inspired to just order the book yourself and read it, and not just read it, but get you a notebook, take notes, do what Marcia has for you to do.
what
um,
surprised me about hearing people's reviews, because I think we into the 40s, we have 40 something reviews on Amazon and a
mhm.
number of reviews on Goodreads too. Um, those reviews out of 5 stars are something like 4.8 and up. So that was a big shocker for me. But
Awesome.
more than the stars, it was the words. There were special needs parents who said, you know, I I'll be reading this again and again. It's going to be a
Yes.
mainstay on my bedside table because I feel felt, I feel understood, I feel supported,
Hmm.
and it's exactly what I set out to do. But the big surprise for me was the non-special needs parents who wrote reviews.
Mm.
Said, I don't have special needs children in my life. I'm not a special needs parent, but this book supported me.
Yes.
Because when we speak about many of the challenges, wondering what the long term vision is for our life, wondering what will happen if things go wrong, wondering how to be a better parent, wondering how to plan financially, wondering how to deal with lack of connection or wanting better relationships or stopping isolation, or how to deal with so many negative feelings. All of
Hmm.
those show up in everybody's life.
Yes.
So they kept saying, these stories you've told and these tools that you've shared, they've made a difference to me. And I remember just sitting there and being shocked because I didn't expect it to have made a difference to like a person who wasn't in a special needs parenting role.
Mm-hmm.
um, I was writing the book primarily for special needs parents and for the people who I wanted to sensitize to be their supporters.
Mm.
But it has reached other people, and they say such wonderful things that I'm like, I'm grateful that I stopped doubting and I just said, okay, let's put it out there.
Mm-hmm.
So the book is a very low priced resource that is making a difference. And then we have a big free resource, which is the Special Needs Parent podcast.
Oh yes. Oh, yeah. And I will be providing the link to the so that you can purchase the book and the link to your podcast. And tell us a little bit about the community that you've created to help those who need support.
When I wrote the book, I created a Facebook group called Lighting the Path, the same name as the book. And I just set aside that group because it wasn't the right time for me to start launching all of that. I needed to create more resources first for my heart to feel okay, that I could support people. And so I just started that podcast, the Special Needs Parent podcast. I think we close to 100 episodes. So there's lots and lots of support on there. But the Lighting the Path Facebook group is a community that I'm only now beginning to invite people into. And
Mm-hmm.
so I'd love to invite any and all of our viewers to come on in and join us so that we can build a community, so that you don't have to walk this path alone. Um, and like I said, while I have some approaches and tools that have made a big difference to me and the people that I've coached and supported, there's always going to be more support when you have a whole community supporting one another,
Yes.
because the discussion becomes richer, the ties become tighter, the safety becomes more embracing.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what we want. We want a safe place where we can say, listen, I'm having a hard day, could somebody support me? Or I have a huge win. I remember the first huge win I had for Emma was when Emma cried. Emma would have tears streaming down. Her mouth would be open as though she was screaming, and no sound came out because she was nonverbal.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember that broke my heart. And I was like, for the rest of my life, my child will not be able to say it to me, Mom, I'm in pain.
Mm.
Mom, I need this. And I remember how bereft I felt the first time I saw how much pain my child was in, but she couldn't say
No sound.
anything.
Wow.
And then one day she was crying and I heard, just the tiniest little sound. And I just stopped and I recognized this is a miracle. It's not a miracle for anybody else in this world. But miracles come in such small, inconsequential ways. Your daughter moves her finger 1 millimeter. She makes the tiniest little cry. She turns her head when a color shows up because somebody diagnosed her as blind, and all of these have happened to us.
Mm-hmm.
Diagnosed as blind, and yet I pass yellow or red in front of her, and now she's turning.
Yeah. Oh, I
I've
remember when that started happening. That was exciting, even for me. Like
so
I
so we
yeah.
want, because when I
Yeah.
tell people in my life, like my own family, I'll tell them things and I want them to share my joy, and they just move on to whatever next is on their mind.
Mm-hmm.
And they just like swipe it off the table. And I'm like, well, I wish somebody would hold space for me.
Yeah.
Well, that's why we have this group, because we understand that It may not look big to the average person,
Right.
but we aren't average people in the group. We've
Yeah.
been through so many of these stories. And when your story comes in and you need somebody to say, wow, how wonderful, you're going to
Hmm.
find that in the group. So
Yeah.
I'll give the link to you as well to share, because we would love to build that community. It is about heart, and it is about connection, and it is about openness and
Yeah.
celebration, even when the celebration is for the tiniest things.
Yeah. Oh, the tiniest things are the biggest. The tiniest things are the biggest. I believe that. It's tiny to someone else, but it's ginormous to another person.
Yeah.
And so that sound filled the house and went out even further. Like someone probably stopped and went, I hear something. The tiniest little sound.
And from
Oh
that,
wow,
from
Martha.
that, there's so much, right? So now we say prayers for Emma in the morning and in the night. And I'm a Presbyterian. And when I sing the three amens, after each
Hmm.
amen, my husband sings the first, my son sings the second, I sing the third. That's our little night routine. And after each of us sings it, we have to stop because she sings her version of it right
You
after.
see? Oh
You know,
wow.
and it's the most beautiful feeling to share that 2 minute ritual,
Yeah, yeah.
because my child is expressing herself as she can.
Hmm. And you are allowing it, embracing it. Oh,
Yeah.
it's what a beautiful note to even end on, I think.
Yeah.
Wow, Marcia, thank you so much. You are a huge inspiration. I could never have thought in a million years, million years, in this lifetime, that I would meet someone that I cherish. You know, I can't even can't even explain it. Um, yeah, I can't even put it into words. I want to. I don't want to tear up and cause a scene, but I cherish our friendship. I really, really do. And although you have a lot going on, you had still took out the time to send me a care package once, and even a gift. I mean, you've done so much, and you still do. Like you have a lot going on, but you still make time out to do something for other people. That what you've done for me was at a time that I really, really, I guess, really needed it. I didn't know it until the gift arrived. How important it is to have someone in your life for whatever reason. You may not know the reason, but there's a purpose.
Mhm.
And over the last few months, I understand the purpose. It's been nonverbal, but I understand it, and so I honor you in that, in being who you are, in what you are as well. You're a powerful woman. Oh my goodness, a powerful woman. And so I want to thank you for sharing so much. And um, I really want people to go through this and not just listen to what you're saying, but feel it.
Yeah.
Feel it, because it's transformational. And being able to see you go through the small amount of what I've experienced with you. If someone could just have this hour, I think we've been on here maybe an hour, maybe less than an hour, these few minutes, and then having the knowledge of what's in the book, and then be inspired to purchase the book or gift the book to someone else. Um, you've done a lot. You've done a lot. So never think anymore that you're not enough. You are more, more than enough, in an
Yeah.
exceptional way, more than enough.
Thank you so
So I want to
much.
thank you. Thank you
So
again so much.
just want to
Mm.
end with a message to your viewer who is finding some resonance in what we've been talking about. And that is, it is the human condition for us to sometimes feel those downs. and feel lost.
Mhm.
You don't have to pretend to be okay all the time. More and more with social media, people are encouraged to use masks. I have to look upbeat. I can't say that I feel, as a special needs parent, I feel trapped or I feel drained or I feel bogged down or resentful because somebody is going to tell me that that means I'm not a good parent to my child. That's not true. It's not
Mhm.
true. I can love my child and be caring for my child, but I too deserve care. And the
Mhm.
first place that we get that care is by giving ourselves permission to show the truth of how we are feeling and to show exactly who we are. And there's a reason I put no makeup on today. So, because this is me.
You don't need makeup.
And, my ideal client is going to recognize that I'm going to hold their hand as them. I don't need them to pretend to be somebody else. We get the
Right.
results if you can be open and honest. We get the results when I can be open and honest in return. And that means that you get to be coached or supported by somebody who is flawed, deeply, deeply flawed. Somebody who has been through the ringer and been hurt, and who has built herself back up and continues to fall down and build again. That's what qualifies me as a
Absolutely.
very, very good coach, because I'm not lying to you and I'm not pretending to have it all figured out. So
Mm.
I hope it resonates. I know it will resonate with the right people for
Yeah.
me. And I know it will also tell some people, no, no, she's not my person. And that's great. Then you go and you find yours, and I'll find
Mhm.
mine, because I too need support and coaching, right?
Mhm.
So, so definitely you'll see resources coming from me, from workshops and masterminds to coaching programs that are longer. But for now, there's so much low cost support through the book, as well as free support through the community, which is the Facebook group, and
Mhm.
through the Special Needs Parent podcast. That's how I want to say you're seen, you're supported, and welcome to my world.
Ah, wow. Thank you. Thank you so much. Oh my gosh. That's a perfect part to end on. So once again, I want to thank you, Marcia, for being here and gracing the cover of the sixth issue of the magazine. And I'm looking forward to what's to come. We've got more work to do.
Always. Thank you,
Thank you
Ramona,
so
for being a
much.
wonderful, wonderful friend.
You're so welcome. You're so welcome. A gift, a gift.
And tech guru, because Ramona is the person who supports me with tech so often.
Oh yeah, we have work. We have website work to do. Work, work, work. All right, so that's all for today's interview. Um, Tune in next time for interview number what 7
Often.
when it's time for that one. So once again, I'd like to thank Marcia for being here, and we will see you in the next interview. Good night or
Bye.
good day. You want to subscribe to the magazine, click on the link after this video or somewhere around this video. Subscribe and make sure that you read through the articles of every issue because it's going to be jam-packed with so much to learn about each coach and business tips. There's Tech Talk on Tuesday, Fun Funnel Fridays that you have access to if you become a member. So I hope to see you soon. Thank you so much. See you next month.